So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you for your presence during this roundtable. We are a very large podium, maybe more people in the podium than the presence. So we're going to make it as interactive as possible. We are very lucky to have among us a very big list of experts representing both the private and public sector. So our objective today is to really discuss about electronic trade and how we can really make sure that this time, maybe forever, in the history of electronic commerce and electronic trade, we can bring it to the rest of the world. And this will not end only in few or three big platforms that will control the rest of the world, but can be totally decentralized and in line with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So first of all, we are, and I am used to do this type of roundtables in the World Economic Forum, so I'm going to make it very much Q&A. We're going to break a bit the UN ITU standard, where everybody speaks for maybe 10 minutes. So this is going to be very short questions. I would like also to invite the audience to be as interactive as possible with us as an expert. Treat that as a group of experts in front of you, on where you can ask any questions related to specific areas. So. In this roundtable, I would like the speakers to think about three major areas. One is standardization and making electronic commerce something that can be expanded without borders. We are in an era where the internet is going into a transactional tool. We are on the second phase of the World Wide Web development, which a lot of risk. We are entering into something we call on the World Economic Forum the Industrial Revolution, the fourth Industrial Revolution, which means that everything is going to be connected, everything is going to be interactable, establishing relations between peer, machines, processes, and we need a standardization for that. We cannot depend on one or two major companies to control the world. We need to really bring the international bodies, the UN, UNCITRAL, UNEC, UNCTAD, ITC, and everybody that has something to say about standardization to have a big voice. The second part of the event will be on technology. We have here experts from encryption, cryptographic root keys, identity management, blockchain, artificial intelligence, machine-to-machine. So all those new items, technology items, are for first time in the history merging. So before we used to treat them separately. Now we have a unique opportunity ahead of us, and those technologies are becoming mature technologies and can be integrated, creating a new disruption just by the fact of integrating them. So we're going to cover with the experts on this roundtable what that really means and where is the state of that. And then we're going to go into concrete applications, winners of this technology. We're going to be talking about how countries like Mexico, like Switzerland, like other countries are really becoming champions of this new disruptive fourth industrial revolution disruption, and what are their advices to the rest of the world and international organization on the need to do it. And that will include obviously the discussion with the Trade Point, the Global Trade Point Federation, which is with us here in the table. So just 1 minute more, and then I start the round. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Carlos Moreira. I was for 15 years a UN official and expert in technology. I had the privilege with some of the people in this roundtable to launch what was the first ever e-commerce project, which was the Trade Point back in the 90s, which became by far the largest trading network in the world, and it still is, with the presence now of the Federation. And now I am the chairman and CEO and founder of a cryptography company with the name WSIS. So I run all the major projects in cryptography, and I'm also the chairman of the World Economic Forum Cybersecurity Council. So with that, I will maybe start the first question, and speakers, if you're going to stay in a very short answers and to the point, that will be great. So the first question will be more about, and again, what we are trying to do here is creating a global interoperability model where e-commerce sites, e-commerce e-commerce. People that they have any relation with SMEs can trade among themselves in a way where there is no intermediary, where their products are efficient, where they can conduct secure trading without the need to depend on somebody. So total independency. So one of the first things we need to look into that is the law. And we have here with us UNCITRAL. So Luca, maybe some views on the framework. Do we have an international umbrella where we can build a platform? Think in terms of a platform. We are building an infrastructure. We need to start somewhere. Is that UNCITRAL law and legislation a good starting point, or what are the challenges that you see there? I give you the floor, Luca. Sorry, Luca's there.
Thank you very much. We are starting from the edge of this very, very long table, and thank you, of course, for convening this important meeting and for inviting me. We say always that successful e-commerce is a combination of policy, technology, and law. But I don't see a lot of attention for law, actually. Do we have texts that are sufficient to enable mutual legal recognition, especially across borders? If we are talking about purely commercial transactions, yes, we have them. Except they don't get the attention they deserve, both in terms of enactment by legislators and in terms of awareness by the users. Things get more complex if we introduce different actors. If we introduce governments, if we introduce consumers. And things got more complex lately with the emergence of this concept of identity management, which I believe we need more time to study and to understand exactly its implications. But at a very general level, I would say business-to-business transactions based on a few solid principles, like technology neutrality, like party autonomy in choosing the right type of technology and method and what they like to do. These are solutions that are now tested, and these are solutions that may suffice for cross-border commercial operations.
So one question on that. Let's again, I want to be very pragmatic in what the reality is. We're in a world now where you have platforms like Facebook with 1.6 billion identities being created already. You have Google acquiring Global Sign, operating cryptographic root keys in order to become a monopoly. Basically, they are creating an internet within the internet. How do you fight that? I mean, you are United Nations Commission for Trade Laws, means that you have developing countries inspire themselves on you so they can themselves apply laws that they would protect, again, those type of monopolistic practices. Are you doing that already? And if so, where? And how can that be replicated?
We don't deal specifically with the competition aspects. Actually, competition law is something where UNCTAD was active. But we deal with technology neutrality for sure. And technology neutrality is the key in the sense that we tell countries that they should not lock in any provider or in any specific solution for their, we want to say authentication, we say authentication, identity management, electronic signature. We even have to settle on the terminology. But yes, we say that. Now, it's interesting that you would mention developing countries, because my experience is actually developed countries tend to be more technology neutral, and developing countries are the reverse. They tend to believe in a single solution that eventually does not deliver, unfortunately, and this perpetuates certain problems in trying to get in the e-commerce global arena.
So on that line, then Again, while we are talking, we're going to be designing an optimal country in our brains. We're going to try to create a country where everything works, where traders are able to participate, whether identities are being provided, where cryptographic root keys are being located, where there's absolutely no dependencies on somebody else, where nobody has repudiation rights on that country. So is the current technology already helping to that? Maybe some questions to Maria, next to me, Chief of the Trade Facilitation Section, Economic Cooperation for Trade Division. You mentioned about, and I saw briefly your notes on blockchain. I am doing a lot of work actually on blockchain to decentralize identities out of databases, because once you put something on databases, somebody controls the database. And now you have technology like ledgers and ways to decentralize those identities in a way that everybody can see the history. Is there a way we should go? Is that something that you think is the ideal standard of the future?
Well, we are starting to work on this now. Actually, we just launched the project, and it will not be a technical project, but the idea is to produce 2 white papers to see where we should go. So I think, we are discussing on this question right now. What we are already trying to do, we have already a lot of standards. So we are already trying to streamline this standard. We have the UNTDD, Trade Data Element Directory, the Core Component Library in UNCFACT. And what we are doing, we are already breaking this down in pieces so that they can be used once that the blockchain will finally enter into force. We do think that this is the way we are going. So blockchain is already here. We have to see how to apply it, how to make sure that we are going to go technology neutral, and Luca was already mentioning it. And we have to be careful that everybody has the same technology to use it, because we are trying to help consumer. If they don't have the final technology to use it, then we risk that we are producing something that is not widely useful by everybody. And then we have to be careful not to create additional burden.
Yes.
We are trying to simplify, not to create another layer.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I think it's very fascinating the fact that one of the things blockchain does is basically reduces the need of any agency, government, international organization of country to have any say, because basically it's a decentralized ledger where everybody is able to access the ledger and check the trust of that ledger. But one of the things blockchain misses is the regulatory aspect. So I guess combining the regulatory aspect and the legal framework as a way to say, actually blockchain is a technology which scales not very well. So you might need to do private blockchains at national level, where you will have one set of rules and policies that will define how do you delegate the trust of the blockchain. I'll give you an example. I was with the Mauritius government. They want to be the blockchain country, but the first thing the government tells me, I want to do e-voting on the blockchain because I want every vote of my citizens to be recorded in a ledger so everybody can see the history, transactional history of that vote. But we as a government, we are the only one that can issue the digital identity to the citizen. That cannot be issued by somebody else. So that combination between trust delegation and decentralization is very powerful. And on that, we have here the pleasure to have Yolanda with us. Yolanda is the Chief Digital Government Unit of the Mexican government and is an amazing visionary in terms of technology, and you're already moving big time into blockchain. So what are you doing, Yolanda? What you can recommend other countries to do in that area?
Well, thank you so much for having the opportunity to be here. I'm part of the team of the National Digital Strategy Coordination Office, which is under the President's office. And we are very interested in having the opportunity to test how we can really use blockchain to improve government services. We definitely think it's a huge opportunity to reinvent government services, to provide an increased trust of citizens in government institutions. And for doing that, the National Digital Strategy Office and the Ministry of Public Administration, where is my office located, launched a hackathon. And we were very impressed by the response of government agencies willing to participate in defining the challenges in learning about technology like blockchain and how it can be used to increase and improve government services. And for our surprise as well, a state government decided to participate, which is Jalisco. So right now we're working on 7 challenges, and it has been a very interesting experience. We definitely had to create a consultative board of experts since we are government. We define regulations, and we definitely wanted to have use cases, real use cases of how the technology can be implemented. So the hackathon is going to be this July in Guadalajara, Jalisco. It's a major hackathon in the country, Latin America. For the prototype projects that are selected from the hackathon, we are going to start analyzing and study how these implementations shape policy. What type of regulations do we need to change, if any, in using blockchain, like, for example, for identity management, or how our electronic signature legal framework should change. It's a very interesting time to start testing this technology, and especially for governments that we are so used to regulate everything, maybe too much. So it's something that we are very interested in. We're also part of the Latin American Network for the Development of E-Government, Red GEALC. So Uruguay is also another country from Latin American region who is also testing in blockchain. And we want to raise awareness of how this technology can really shape and foster trust, especially when Latin American countries are so unequal. So we see this opportunity as a democratization of services if we are able to be trust government at a very cost-effective solutions. So we see a lot of hope in using blockchain technology. It's definitely more about getting the skill within ICT government officials to start testing and to start defining a new way of digital services for the coming years.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. A country that will move fast than anybody else on creating their own blockchain infrastructure, their own administrative ledger. It will reduce 3 things. One is corruption. Blockchain is one of the best technology to reduce corruption because everything is recorded on the ledger and is immutable, so you cannot modify. Therefore, it's impossible to modify any transaction. You have a history of the transaction from the first day to whatever that cycle of life that transaction has. Plus, it totally decentralized e-services. And I think we are still keeping using e-commerce, e-services, e-identities, but the E is disappearing. This is the 90s, the 2000, right? Now we are moving into deep tech, algorithmic technologies, which is the interception of technologies, then they go deep into the web versus just in the surface of the web. So on that, again, and I keeping, because this is a unique opportunity to have so many standard organization on this panel, and again, if you need to conceptualize this ideal global interoperability model on e-services around the world through a global trade platform, organizations like the United Postal Union has something that maybe the trade points also had, is local presence. So you have a postal office everywhere in the world where you can go and certify yourself, or at least show proof of evidency as a way to get a digital identity. Why don't we do that already? I mean, we have been discussing that for so many years. Where is the next step on your vision on creating this mesh network where post offices of the world can become RAs, and those RAs can be used for certification? And obviously, if you want to say anything else as well, for sure.
Thank you, Carlos. And yes, I would like to give a little bit of information regarding the Universal Postal Union. We are the UN agency specialized for the postal sector. And as you mentioned, we have a massive network of offices across the world, so this creates a unique asset for the postal sector. Also, we have 3 dimensions: physical, digital, and financial. So for e-commerce, it's something that is important. I would like to pick up in one point you mentioned before regarding the legal umbrella. we have, since almost 150 years, a legal umbrella within the postal sector. So this is something to keep an eye on it. We have standards, so this is one way we connect the countries and the people around the world. Now, as you mentioned, the challenge is to do it in a digital space. So we have two approaches to that. First is creating standards in a digital space. We are taking a look of blockchain. I want to mention that we are monitoring the postal industry across the world. In this report that you have on the table, blockchain was one of the trends, global trends, that the postal operators, together with governments, are looking at. So this is something that we already monitor there. And also we are working in the framework and the governance. So we have one top-level domain called .post. We are the first UN agency to develop this platform. It's a space in internet dedicated to the postal operators. And also we are working with governments also to develop some e-government assistance, but also mainly for e-commerce, e-marketplaces. So as an agency, we are not looking deeply in the technical details, but in how we can create a framework of governance where we can put together companies, governments, postal operators, and civil society to move forward in e-commerce, and maybe later we can provide more details.
So we already start to see some synergies here. I mean, the word blockchain is becoming all the time from the different UN agencies, which is pretty interesting because normally if the blockchain really happens and you decentralize ledgers, you don't need UN agencies anymore. You know, that's exactly the power of decentralization of blockchain, is that basically takes away the need of having any third trusted party, which is what UN agencies are. So it's a bit contradictory, but we all sense ourselves that we should move towards that direction. Some warnings on blockchain, because I think it's important. Everybody talks blockchain, AI, because they are big subjects, and that attracts attention. But blockchain doesn't scale well enough. So, actually, Bitcoin is saturating the current blockchain infrastructure. And Bitcoin requires a lot of energy. You know, the new currency on blockchain is energy. So you will need to use a lot of energy to run very large blockchains, in case then you want to put IoT on the top of it, and transaction, and fintech, and all that. And that means that countries only with a lot of energy will be able to develop very big blockchain. So that's maybe why you start to realize many countries are building those massive battery solar plants and investing a lot of energy, because energy is going to be the currency, not gold anymore. Energy is going to be the currency required to run very big. So this is an exclusion factor for developing countries, right? Many developing countries will not have the energy required to run very big blockchain. So that's maybe a role of international organizations to provide a de facto blockchain platform that will be the same way we did it many years ago with the e-commerce infrastructure websites, allows developing countries to participate. So in this technology, and I am before moving finally to the technology aspect, maybe, and I think the United Postal Union brings a very interesting dimension, which is the entry point. Traders of the world needs to go somewhere to authenticate themselves. You know, as I say before, when we created the Trade Point Network back in the 90s, the big success was that every country had a trade point. That was a localized office located in a country that connected to a network of other trade points, and between themselves they exchange data and services. Actually, maybe you don't know, but Alibaba was the trade point in China at that time, the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Economic Cooperation, MOFTEC. So look what happened with Alibaba. It was a pretty successful one, right? So that means that if you apply a registration authority localized access point, you create a total different model than what the big e-commerce sites are able to do, which they sell you products, but you don't know if they are counterfeited products. They introduce you companies, but you never know if those companies really exist. So we have the honor and pleasure to have Bruno with us here as the founder of the World Trade Point Federation. Bruno, what is your recommendation, knowing now that technology is there and we have the right regulatory framework to really provide the last mile to traders of the world? What is your views on that?
Indeed, Carlos. technology, legal framework, everything is set up. In fact, for me, it's a real pleasure to see that, since the trade point history is the history of the missing timing, you know. When we launched the project in 1992, okay, it was a good idea, but the technology was not there. After that, some technology came, but the users were not there. After that, technology and users were there, but the resources, the financial resources, was not there. But now we are at the right moment with technology, resources, and everything ready, and also a global population of people completely acquired just to navigate and to conduct their business and their life through internet and connectivity. For that, I think that despite of everything, the trade points can act as a key role again in this big value chain. Why? Because at the end of the day, we will speak all the afternoon about technology, security, or whatever, but I think one of the key points to make that change trustfully and viable is that someone in the beginning certify in completely credible manner all data that are introduced in the system. Because if not, the entire chain will be wrong. So yeah, nobody is modifying, but nobody is modifying a wrong information. And if we are speaking about SMEs and e-commerce, that is a key point. For that, we are very pleased that despite all the effort that we have during all these years, we still have a very large network of trade points, basically established in local government, which give credibility to the certification, but also creating a very close proximity with the SMEs and also with the first entry of the data. Also, local governments are very in daily contact with the companies, not only by the taxes, but also because they are approving them to work, you know. So all the information that will be introduced in this valuable chain by the trade points, we can assure that is credible, is checked by a completely trust authority.
Yeah, well, first of all, I didn't even present my organization. I work for the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, and we have a body that is called the Center for Trade Facilitation and Electronic Business, UNCFACT. And of course, we work on electronic commerce. We mainly look after semantic, streamline services in order to reduce the cost on transaction and etc. One thing that I wanted to say is we are not there yet at the moment where we will not need the trusted provider. Actually, UNCFACT is working on, it's already 1 year and something that we are working on a project that is called Legally Significant Trusted Transboundary Electronic Interaction. And it's a very long name. To the yeah, well, the idea is that, okay, you can have your blockchain, but then you need the trust service provider. So the idea is to try to create an infrastructure that at national level can validate and significantly validate the information so that then can be exchanged. And at the beginning we thought to work on a recommendation because we work a lot on recommendations. But then we realized that the recommendation is not the right way out. This should be more an international convention so that the governments kind of recognize each other and they allow then this trusted network to create.
And I think this is, you just mentioned the key word here is not blockchain, it's not cryptographic keys, it's not artificial intelligence, it's actually trust. We are in a world, and it's actually a trust deficit, and there at the same time it's a trust shift. So we are shifting from trust models that we were used to use to new ones that we don't use. So, or kids do not trust anymore a hotel website. They rather go to one of the referral sites where they see what the others' kids like or not that hotel to go as a holiday. So we are going into a peer-to-peer process on trust, and that's why I think the organizations like all of them in this table, you have a critical responsibility towards redefining that new trust model, because we are cryptographers, we are mathematicians, we are software people. We do what people tell us to do. So if somebody describes a very clear trust model, it will be very easy to bring that trust model down to the user level. And the good news is that once this is done, you can create a very powerful business model. Maybe one question, and just because I know James needs to leave very soon, and he's a key people, because a lot of those projects ends when you have to finance them, and where is the money, and where is the business model behind all this. There is a project launched by Alibaba, just to give you an idea, which is the World E-Trade platform, right? The vision of Jack Ma is that if we reduce the complexity to a trader to develop a company, create an accounting system, developing a catalog, inventory, if we take all that, and all that is provided by a managed platform, then that person will become very efficient. And that person then, whether it's located in New York or in Delhi or in Maputo, it's totally irrelevant, because the platform will provide that as a service. So how you see the venture capital world? I mean, you are an investor in companies, you invest in innovation, you have one of the largest incubators here in Geneva. Will you put money in companies and they come into you with this kind of integrated solution? What is your vision on this possibility, both from the risk side and also from the rewarding side?
Thank you, Carlos. My name is Colin Turner. I'm one of the co-founders of Rising Star Accelerator. We're based, as Carlos mentioned, here in Geneva, and we are focused on cybersecurity or IT security solutions from across Europe. I wish it would be so easy to answer your questions. They're good questions, Carlos. They're difficult to answer, though. What you find, fundamentally, your statement is correct about the lack of trust. How do you solve it? And as you go out into the marketplace and look at people who are trying to solve it, you see a phenomenal amount of innovation at the moment. It really is cutting edge. There are a lot of new technologies, a lot of new business models out there. And ultimately, it is very difficult to identify which one is going to win. You can sit around a table with 6 people all agreeing on the problem definition, and they've all got completely different solutions that are being proposed. And as you look for funding for these companies, it has not been very easy in Europe to secure the funding. In America, it's been much easier to secure the funding. It's getting better over here, but only slowly. So I can say that there are a lot of people out there with technology solutions that they're proposing. Don't worry, I'm coming to a conclusion. I'd just like to say that we're seeking to help raise the threshold for entrepreneurship here in Geneva, and we see Geneva as being a center of excellence for cybersecurity across Europe. And I think Carlos's company, WSIS, is a good example. There are others. There are half a dozen leading cybersecurity companies that are well-funded, that have all got their roots in Geneva. And I think Geneva today is a good example. Geneva is flying the flag for cybersecurity across Europe.
Thank you very much. I think, again, maybe I ask you again that question, because I think it's an important question, is that when I created my company, or any peer from my generation, and they created a company, it was a $100 million proposition just to raise the money to create a company. In our days, the same company can be created with $100,000, right? So what you say, acceleration, what that really means, accelerating, how can you accelerate a company from any of the countries members of the ITU? as a bringing them to a threshold where that company can break through and become a major company, the acceleration process. Is that something that you can replicate around the world?
Yes, you can, and there are many. Yes, you can, and there are many. It worked. There are many accelerators around the world. There are over 200 in Europe. There are over 40 in London, and there are a handful here in Switzerland. So there's a lot of work that's going into accelerating these businesses. And you're right, the cost of getting technology to a reasonable stage has come down significantly. The challenge is getting the complete business together. So you can get the technology there, the old idea of getting a device, but you don't have a product. And to get that whole product together, to get people together who understand the market, to understand what it takes to put a team together, to get that out into the marketplace, that's still quite a hurdle. And the place for the accelerator is to take these technologies and these teams into the marketplace and make sure that they understand what is expected. And in the security space, it's really quite a challenge because there are a huge number of legacy systems. There's a lot of deployment issues that are there where you may have developed a wonderful solution to the problem, but actually getting it out there into the marketplace is a real challenge. And you can do that through an accelerator, but that requires you to engage with the marketplace. And an accelerator is a great channel to be able to do that.
Thank you, Colin. So question for World Trade Organization, Raul Torres, when you talk about vulnerable economies, which is really, I think, if we succeed, and I always had this vision when we were in the UN, is that if we succeed with a business model in Kenya, Nairobi, that business model becomes universal. I mean, we have now histories of success like Safaricom, M-Pesa, companies then they managed to become, Facebook was trying to acquire M-Pesa with $1.2 billion. Facebook. Why Facebook is acquiring M-Pesa with $1.2 billion? Because M-Pesa was the most effective way of sending money in the world, even more than in Switzerland or France. So that means then sometimes emerging economies, least developed countries, they have solutions that we cannot even dream in developed countries. So how can you organize that in a way that makes sense? Raul. Sorry, we have Raul here with us?
Yes.
Yeah, sir.
I'm here. Thank you. And thanks for inviting me for this interesting panel. Well, I think that at the moment, in a sense, one of the things that we have heard here is this question of the interplay of regulation and policy making on the ground and how that helps moving e-commerce to another level. And I think that here we need to be a little bit creative on how this is going to work at the multilateral level. One thing that I have heard going around different places where we've held events on e-commerce is that the small players in the economy really see regulation in a positive manner, which is quite interesting because most coming from a very liberal point of view would say, oh no, it's like e-commerce is fine, just leave it alone, don't regulate it, just don't touch it. Whereas what we've been hearing from the small players is on the contrary, that the regulation and this kind of solutions that could be provided first at the government level and hopefully also at a multilateral level will favor consumer trust, and that's a key element where it's very difficult for the small players to be able to get a foothold in a market because they basically don't have the consumer trust. The consumer doesn't know who to turn to in cases where something goes wrong with the transaction. And hopefully, if we can get that done at the multilateral level, to have some multilateral agreed rules that have been coming from the ground up, not just listening to the big players, to some of the companies in the developed countries, but also many of the innovators in developing countries, of which there are many, then I think that would be crucial in really moving the game up a notch.
But do you know them? I mean, because I always, and this was one of the thinking process on the trade point when we launched it, is that we want to know where they are. We want to visit them. We want to test them. We want to encourage them. We want to train them. We want to finance them. do we know them? Because I always get the impression in Geneva or in New York, we always talk in a very kind of cloud. Actually, we are the default cloud. But sometimes we don't go down to the reality of the country. Because if you know them, he will maybe finance them, right? And do you do that? Or shall we do that?
We don't do that.
Okay.
We can't do that at the moment. So
you can't?
We can't.
Okay.
I mean, we can't logistically. I mean, the WTO only has offices here in Geneva, so
yes.
we from time to time go on and do this e-commerce, and we're only starting, by the way,
yes.
doing this e-commerce type of workshops at the ground level. So in that sense, we're going to have to rely on the governments to identify those players for us, and this is where
or post offices, trade points, and they're already there. Because I think, you know, when you lose your passport in a country, you don't go to a hotel to ask for a new passport. You know where to go, right? You go to the embassy and you get your new passport. So we don't have yet this instinct because we travel all over the world. I mean, you guys travel all over the world, and we visit all countries of the world many times. So, I mean, if all of us do some kind of investigation research on where this innovation is, how this innovation connects to the global e-commerce platforms, and then you feed that information in an organized way to investors and funding organizations, you start to bring money from different sources, and then things start to happen, right? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. I would like to make a comment about trust. I agree with you with the trust is going down. The trust barometer when was launched a few months ago, trust in general is going down. And I would like also to pick up in some comment that you mentioned that the government should invest in a national network to be able to prove identities or to make sure that the people or companies really assist. And it's already there. It's the postal network that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. This is an asset. So what is our position or the position that maybe the Post can add to this discussion? They are already doing that. In some cases, there are some postal operators that they are doing identity checks for governments. They are doing identity checks for businesses, mm-hmm. for example. In our top-level domain, in .post, for example, to get a top-level domain for the postal organization, it requires authentication, mm-hmm. registration. So there is a kind of checks that can help to avoid and to mitigate the trust as a barrier for e-commerce. So this is something that is already there. In some cases, we just need to invest a little bit more to add capacities like with technology, and to make the most out of it.
And another thing you have, which I think is essential here, you have a business model, because when you go to a post office and you do that, you pay for that service. I mean, Switzerland is the RA infrastructure of the country is located in post office. And post office now, because you are losing the traditional revenue model, needs to reinvent themselves, right? So it's a normal thing to do. And by the way, I think it's an immediate cooperation here between post office and trade points. And it's also an immediate cooperation here between UN Citral and post office, because one of the problems of post office as a trusted party is that people don't necessarily like a global trust model. So you don't have, somebody sitting in Bern with a global root trust in the world. As I say, trust is now peer-to-peer. And if you apply that peer-to-peer element to trust, then you succeed much faster than if you impose an international super organization doing that for you. Another element important here, and I think the experience of Moreira from the Digital Policy Diplo Foundation is awareness, education. How can we transfer all those complex knowledge about top-level domain, IP, IPv6, everything that you guys do also with the Internet Society, in a way that can help organizations, and they are deploying very large ecosystems like TradePoint or Post, to do the work more efficient in a coordinated way?
Thank you. I work for Diplo Foundation, which is an organization that provides research and capacity building on diplomatic issues and also on digital policy issues. And together with the Internet Society, we have a platform called the Geneva Internet Platform, which serves as a focal point for those who want to understand what is going on with relation to Internet-related discussions on many UN different organizations that discuss issues related to the internet. And capacity building is indeed key. We have noticed in Geneva that there's a large number of digital policy issues that we have discussed over the years in the IGF, here in the WSIS forum, that have moved into a trade agenda. And the trade negotiations, not only in bilateral trade agreements or multilateral trade agreements, but also in the WTO, in the next ministerial that is going to happen towards the end of the year. There is a huge focus on moving forward discussions on e-commerce in a more steady pace, and different countries have put forward non-papers on what they think could be an agenda for trade negotiations. And indeed, they touch upon issues such as network neutrality and what is the impact of network neutrality on competition, encryption as something that is important for privacy but also needs to be mitigated with regards to law enforcement, standardization and the importance of standards on competition, and data flows, which has been a very important topic on the face of data localization provisions that have multiplied across the globe. Not only in countries like Russia that have very clear and specific data localization provisions and that force companies to localize data within the territory, but also other kinds of data localization provisions that force data to be routed through specific territories, or that force companies to have national components or to hire a national workforce. So there are different provisions on data localization. Many of them are located in Europe. The European Commission has put forward a huge effort to convince countries to curb data localization provisions. But what concerns us is that a lot of these negotiators that have a large knowledge on trade issues, they do not necessarily know the history of the negotiation of digital policies in the IGF or in the ITU or in the Commission on Science and Technology for Development. So recently we have launched a course that has just finished, in which we had a large participation of negotiators that are going to be in the WTO ministerial. And what we try to do is to explain these topics that sometimes can be seen as very technical, but that are fundamental to understand what are the implications of network neutrality, for instance, of what it means to localize data, how does it impact on the architecture of the internet and on the principles that have made the internet work as it works and be a space of permissionless innovation and creativity, and a space in which new companies can just plug and play and put their businesses out there. So they need to understand what are the technical implications of the topics that they are going to discuss in the WTO, and we have provided that in an easy manner, and the response has been quite positive. So people that have a very large trade knowledge have come to understand a little bit more of the technical aspects as well. So I believe that we will launch another course before the WTO, and we will keep you updated and informed on that.
Can I participate in that course?
Sure.
Everybody. I think, yeah, you want to say something?
Sorry, I go back. Oh, sorry, I go back of one intervention. You were saying before maybe we should have a platform or something to connect the companies to the founder and etc. And I just wanted to recall that there has been a huge work done by UNCTAD with the support of something like, at the moment, I think we are something like 20 organizations, to create an e-commerce platform where you can find a large amount of information on who does what, where you can get what, and that can connect the two parts. Of course, these are the companies or who wants to start a business that has to look for the information. But the information are there. And then there is, of course, ICC that is always there to support the private sector. And ICC is also part of this platform, as we are, as is WEF, and a lot of other organizations.
I should acknowledge as well that UNCTAD has been a key partner of this course on digital commerce, as well as ITC and CATS.
You know, I work for ITC, I work for UNCTAD, I work for the UN, I work for World Trade Organization, I work for many people, and one of my concerns was always, that's why I moved to the private sector, is that despite the superpowers we have, we are like here the Avengers, you know, with all superpowers, we're still not able to make a breakthrough where developing countries can establish and start to make money out of the amazing courses, amazing platforms, amazing data we have. So how that can be done. I mean, I think we need to, and that's why I moved to the private sector. I wanted to prove it, that this is feasible. And now WSIS is a listed company in the Swiss stock market because we wanted to prove that if you bring those amazing capabilities that we have here in Geneva to a small trader sitting in Malaysia or in Africa, and that trader becomes the next Mark Zuckerberg, then we did well our job. I mean, we need to start to empower developing countries in a more proactive and factual. I don't think building an UNCTAD platform or an ITC platform or a World Trade Organization platform is the solution. First of all, nobody needs platforms anymore. The platforms are becoming now like hybrids, then they get created by default. You don't have to build a platform. It's like you just need to bring a piece of your knowledge into a artificial intelligence type of infrastructure, which they will compile that knowledge in different ways to give you an effect of a platform. So technology has advanced so much, but we are still missing the last mile. So I just wanted to insist to that point because this is critical. What this roundtable is trying to achieve is how can we at least one or two or three ideas, doesn't need to be the entire solution, but something that allows us to start to walk towards empowering developing countries to create some wealth out of all this technology. You want to say something? Please. If you, by the way, if the floor wants to challenge us or disagree with us, you're most welcome. This is a workshop. It's not only a panel. You can ask any question you might need to ask. Please.
Thank you very much.
If you can introduce yourself,
yes,
1 second.
So I'm Scarlett von der, and I work for UNCTAD in the ICT analysis section, and I feel compelled to provide some additional information regarding this e-trade for all platform that was just mentioned, because it's not actually an e-commerce. First of all, it's not an UNCTAD e-commerce platform. It is truly a platform of all the partner organizations. And just to update Maria's information, it's actually 23 now. Okay. So we have 23 partner organizations, international organizations, but not only because it's just like ICTs are cross-cutting and multi-stakeholder in terms of dealing with the issues, so is e-commerce. And the platform it has the following stakeholders: the international organizations, which channel technical assistance, the development partners or donors that provide assistance through these organizations, the beneficiaries themselves that can access the information there and request help. And then there is also a private sector. It is linked to the E-Trade for All initiative in the form of a group called the Business for E-Trade Development group, and you can reach them through the E-Trade for All platform, and that's just private sector companies, and they have their own agenda, and they make their contributions to policy discussions, but also they are able to see which organizations are helping countries in which aspect of E-Trade for All. Yep. And also to add that the E-Trade for All initiative, it is to try and expand the use of e-commerce for economic growth. It is about inclusive e-commerce, and we are very much interested in promoting e-commerce also in least developed countries because they are the ones that are facing the most hurdles. But I do encourage everyone to go and visit it because it was just launched in April, yep. eTradeforall.org, and it covers 7 policy areas. And those 7 policy areas are roughly represented on your panel, actually. So there's legal and regulatory frameworks, infrastructure and services, funding for e-commerce enterprises, and skills develment.
Thank you very much. And I think it's a great idea to use what is already exists. Although a word of caution, I was on your seat 25 years ago when also UNCTAD project launched the Trade Point Network, and it was at that time the same spirit to create a global infrastructure where trade facilitation will reduce $30 billion to the trade economy, but just improving efficiency. And we're not basically in just developing the Trade Point movement. So the Trade Point is there. So it's no point to reinvent the wheel again and again. You know, the e-trade platform, if you use Google e-trade platform, you end up in Alibaba website doing a deal with the Malaysian Prime Minister or the first e-trade hub. So the problem we're going to have with those applications is that companies like Alibaba and others, they're going to be trying, because this is their instinct, they have to grow. Those companies are very big already, and they have to keep growing. Their instinct will be to monopolize those efforts as a way to introduce those efforts as efforts of their own company. So if you don't control the technology, if you don't have the IP, if you don't host the servers, if you don't have the data, somebody's doing it for you. So we need to be very careful then by creating something, we don't create dependency on developing countries or something that in the future will not be good for them. So the solution is not to create platforms. The solution is to create localized representations. It's what we call a hub and a node. Hub is great, and this is not a problem. We can know how to make hubs. What we don't know how to make yet is nodes. And nodes are organizations like Postal Union, TradePoint, then they have that experience. TradePoint has a track record, Postal Union has a track record of helping SMEs and traders at local level to make money by accessing what we are providing to them. Bruno.
Yeah, indeed, I fully agree. In fact, with everybody, but at the end of the day, exactly, because
blockchain,
all are part of one picture. But we are missing something that Carlos said half an hour ago about the last mile. You know, because we can speak about regulations, considering always that the market is going always more quickly than the regulations.
Absolutely.
That's the first problem that we have. The second one is that many times we think that the regulations are helping SMEs. It's like the law. The law is not to punish you, it's to protect you. But many times you cannot understand the clear picture about that, you know? But the thing is that all these point of view, tools, platform, or wherever, at the end of the day, must to be delivered to the SMEs. And I don't know how many people are very familiarized working with SMEs, but SMEs act like let me be specific, like children in the kindergarten.
Yeah.
Come on, you cannot speak about them, about big platforms, the UN environment, the multilateral, wherever. They must to pay the salary at the day after. They need to look how they can find a trust, you know? So everything that we are saying is perfect. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the last mile to make the SMEs to understand, to learn, and to apply to wherever we are talking about, this is only, you know, air. So I think that, not because I want to just to make a good position of the Federation, whatever network in the world, you know, the key point is the proximity to the final destination of whatever you want to create to support you, you know? If you are not close to them, let me know how from a big cloud platform, you will assist an SMEs in Argentina, Mexico, or wherever. You know, it's impossible. Believe me, I worked 25 years close to SMEs, and I know them. You know, you must to know at what time during the day you must call him, because you know that he's coming at probably at 10 in the morning. In the afternoon, he's going with his secretary to lunch. You need to know them. And when you know them, you can help them. And when they know you, they start to trust on you. And all the things that you are delivering, you know, it start to be part of his picture. If not, it's impossible.
I think the flow here is and has been redundant in the history of human technical cooperation, is where you position yourself in the problem. So one thing is to say, and actually the title of this roundtable is the contribution of electronic trade e-commerce platform to the sustainable developing goals. So this is not how we platform, we benefit from everybody else that is going to send us data and send us reasons for us to keep our jobs in Geneva. This is how can we reverse the logic, how those platforms that we already have, with these tons of databases that we already have, can be organized in a way that developing countries and traders that they need that data now because they want to be competitive in the international market can use it. So that's the concept of what Bruno says about the last mile, or I say last mile, please. And I think we have the solution here. The question is execution, and this is always where things stops, right? Is that great ideas, but when we get into the execution, we get blocked by so many things. But we have people here that can deliver that.
Thank you, Carlos. Yes, talking about the last mile. Talking about the last mile, we have a specific project that is called Exporta Fácil, Easy Export in Brazil, working with small and medium enterprises and also using something that we have also in the postal sector. We have an interface with the customs.
Walk me through that process. What that means? Okay, I am in that country. Where I do? I go to your post office.
So it's a full program that it covers capacity building for small and medium enterprises, how to use the post office to send merchandise, to receive merchandise, to receive payments.
So it's
to
a
send
logistic
payments.
hub as well.
As well,
yes.
And also. We are building also that this is what we are facing now, the digital space, the same as the postal office in the digital space. So e-marketplaces and some other technologies that can enable small and medium enterprises through the postal network to sell online. Because as trust is some big hurdle, nobody will buy from a small and medium enterprise in the remote area. So we need a third party that can provide trust. Also with identity, probably.
Yes.
Now, by the end of this month, we are approving the standard of Post ID.
Yes.
In version 0, it goes
but
in
on
this
that,
direction.
on Post ID, do you work with UNCTRAL? Do you have cooperation on the UNCTRAL
Not for the moment, but
digital standards?
Not for the moment. What I have to say is that, yeah,
could make a lot of sense, right? Do you see that a project working with the United Postal Union to develop, because they have the distribution capability, you have the basic load standards. Why don't you guys work together? Because that's the beginning of the solution, right? We are moving into the ecosystem.
There's always a different obstacle that comes in the last mile. Now, we have an official project on identity management. Now, I may be completely wrong, but I would be extremely surprised if we didn't send an official letter to the UPU to come to our working group. They are, of course, observers, as all intergovernmental organizations. But we all know large bureaucracies, no?
Yeah,
and that
I
letter
know.
has gone probably
in
a totally different office, and therefore they never came to us. So now all we have to do is, without necessarily doing, is to find out who got that letter and telling them to come to our next meeting in Vienna.
I'm going to be very honest with you. We are entering into the fourth industrial revolution. If you want to keep your jobs in the next 10 years, either you protect SMEs of the world, or you become redundant. This is like, I have a company, I have to do everything for my shareholders. And every year, my shareholders vote, and either I do my good work or I am out. So your shareholders for international organizations is the SMEs in developing countries. Then expecting you to do something for them. This is the, or raison d'être. So if we are not able to work among ourselves, it's always for the same reason, bureaucracy and so on. But the good news is that those interoperable standards doesn't need your Director General to talk to his director and make a deal. This can happen already at the field level.
The bottom line is, let's limit ourselves to intergovernmental organizations, of which we have a few represented here. We don't exchange official communication really by email. At best, we send scanned copies or funny things. We trust things which are inherently weak, like faxes. But we don't trust the emails with a PKI certificate.
Only if you digitally sign based on the UNCTRAL recommendation, digital signature.
I can do that, but there will be no recognition and no interoperability on the other side. So we ourselves, we have a very funny way of doing things. Everybody
and that's why companies like DocuSign with a $3 billion market capitalization is actually eating your lunch. DocuSign now is doing a de facto digital signature globally with 750 million downloads. And you know something is illegal in all the countries of the world, including in the United States, because what they do is an app where you can digitally sign with your finger, and that is embedded into a PDF file, and you use that as a digital signature. So because these organizations realize that we are not able to make up our mind to present a very clear process, they take advantage and they create a de facto monopolies and de facto standards. So. But this is happening, right?
Yeah, but if you forget to delete that app before you go into certain jurisdictions where it is forbidden to enter with cryptographic device without declaring at the customs, you might end up in jail, by the way.
I know, and I do that, by the way. I do travel all over the world with the cryptographic technology, but for that, what you need to do is to, and again, I am trying to design a kind of, that doesn't mean a perfect world, because that doesn't exist, but something where we could become realistic, and where we can, maybe next year, have here a few developing country companies that say, thank you guys, thanks to your advice, we are progressing towards our final objective. One is a very clear digital identity framework on interoperability by UNCTRAL. So UNCTRAL move away from the best endeavor down to very clear guideline, because a digital identity framework needs what you call a CPS, certification practice statement, which is a legal piece of document. That's what rules VeriSign, Symantec, anyone, which basically takes away the liability from anyone issuing identities. This needs to happen. It's not been established. Then go one step down and establish a cooperation between Union, UPU, and Trade Points Federation, where you have RAs, Registration Authority. RAs on any country is the last mile, is where you go and register yourself. And those RAs, because they are under that common legislation, becomes interoperable. Means that if I've been registered in the post office in Brazil, that registration is valid into any country I am in the world. So that's where you reach interoperability. And then you start to develop services on the top of that. The gentleman we have here, which left, which is an investor, he will finance any startup company, then they will put an app on the top of that, a service like a digital signature wallet, like an encrypted cloud, like a blockchain technology, all those services that sits on the top. But before, you need to have that in place.
All proposals are really welcome. I mean, and of course they have to be formalized, but I will be delighted to hear about this. The next opportunity is our next working group session in Vienna from 20 to 24 November. Please, I'm easy to reach. Anything that can be described to the working group, I'm sure they will be delighted to hear about this.
And we have countries like Mexico pushing into the blockchain. Maybe you are the one that we can help your enterprises to be the first one to create that kind of value-added process.
Totally. I definitely coming from the ground. I mean, I come here a week, but believe me, I have a lot of messages of things that are going on in the country right now. Like we're about to release the new policy on digital identity. And it has been a very interesting exercise. If we want to make the last mile really work, I think we have a lot of things to do, like, for example, in making it very easy for a company to be formal. So in Mexico, last year, the president redo basically all the law for SMEs. So right now, SMEs, to create a company, should be free and should be done 100% online in less than 24 hours. That requires a lot of standardization in procedures, a lot of interoperability between the Ministry of Economic Affairs, the Ministry of Social Services, and the tax agency. But it was done. And that required a lot of coordination in terms of recognizing a single sign-on technology, which is very simple maybe, but because of legal regulations, the ministries had a lot of work to do legally to make sure that they recognize each other's identity models. So it was a very interesting exercise, but that's the thing that really makes things happen. So now to become formal, it's very easy, it's cheap, there is no administrative burden in creating a business. And then once you create your business, then you need to match demand with supply, demand for good ideas and supply for good investments. So I think that's a key example, but it requires a lot of work with the legislative Congress people to change the law. And the implementation was a challenge, believe me. And we're talking about 3 major ministries: the tax agency, the Ministry of Economic Affairs, and the Ministry of Health. And just changing their own regulations to be able to recognize each other's standards and digital identity policies within their own systems was a challenge. But once it's done, then we have more than 3,000 new companies created under this model since October to this day. So I totally agree that the challenge is just let's do it. And when I say let's do it, it's because we had the right political support at the top level. We work a lot with Congress in changing our regulations, and we definitely took serious the part of standardization. And right now we exchange certificates of exports with Alianza de Pacifico countries. So we work on electronic certificates between Peru, Chile, Colombia, and Mexico. No paper. Yes. No seal, no signature. And believe me, it was a challenge. There is no need for that if we recognize each other legal frameworks, if we work with the same digital signature standard, and it's happening. And it's something that it needs to be done if we really want to reduce inequality in our countries.
And another thing she did when I met Yolanda is she told me I went to see a lot of the websites, and they were in my country, and some of them they only have 10 hits. And I just shut them down, because it was totally useless to have so much redundancy. So that's where technology is helping you now. I mean, a few years ago, we can hide behind excuse. So we are very good. Humans are very good on that, to create a white elephant just because we want to keep a job stability or whatever. In our days, this is impossible because we are totally transparent. Whatever we do, either we are efficient or we disappear. So this is a huge opportunity because identity, we already, I've been talking about identity for 25 years. That does look like boring subject, right? Because now with the semantic technology, artificial intelligence, you can actually create an identity without even the person to know that person has been creating an identity. So technology is moving so fast. I think what we need to be sure is that we keep the reality of bringing value to developing countries. That should be an obsession. Our obsession is that either we develop value and developing countries progress thanks to us, or then we are not doing our job properly. So one question on the technology, and this is great, that's interoperability between region is a great model. Just Pedro, on the cryptography side, cryptography root keys, there are two things on cryptography root key. One is that every country in the world should have one. And the only cryptographic root keys now, they are US dominant cryptographic keys. Actually, WSIS is a Swiss cryptographic key. And the other one is that even our technology might disappear very soon because we are coming with quantum cryptography that could totally replace the way cryptographic keys works. So how you see the trends in the next 2-3 years? What is your recommendation for countries to organize themselves? Again, think a country that wants to deploy a full, like India is doing with the unique identifier, 1.3 billion identities, like China is doing with the social security card, 1.6 billion identities. Is that going to be the trend? How you see that, and how countries organize themselves to maintain their own control on that process?
Well, that's not an easy question. I think that the key will be to find the right balance between two different trends that we are hearing today about institutions or trusted third parties that are providing trust, and at the same time the need and the convenience of having solutions that distribute the trust across the different players. And I think that this is the best possible solution from a political point of view, but also from a technology point of view. I mean, for me, thinking on blockchain as the cure for all the diseases of the world is not realistic, but at the same time, we are very aware of the limitations of traditional technologies like PKI. So finding the right balance between trusted identities of the players that are intervening in a transaction and the technologies that like the blockchain to protect the transaction itself is probably the way to go in a short and medium term.
What about EIDS, the European Union model because this is a very interesting development and could be extended to many other countries. The European Union actually is forcing now foreign companies, and this is putting Facebook, YouTube, and all in a lot of hit because they are basically not compliant, the way they do not protect the PII of users. So how you see that EIDS model expanding to other regions of the world?
Well, EIDS is a very good example of the benefits that a proper regulation can bring to the people. I mean, we were in Europe basically based in a regulation that was from 2003 that was mostly untouched, that every country was regulating their own way. But now with EIDAS, we are in a common framework that is really leveraging the digital identities and the capability to do digital signatures across Europe. The same approach can be easily extended to other regions of the world, definitely, and that is the way to go also.
Very good. So we have a gentleman behind. Yes, you have been requesting the floor, please.
Yeah, so many things to say to these provoking statements. I wanted to come back to, my name is Jeff Gibbas. I work with Waikato Management School in New Zealand, but I'm also a marketing practitioner, and I've been working on e-commerce with the European Commission, frighteningly, for about 20 years. Before that, I was head of marketing for companies like AT&T, Honeywell, Europe, Middle East, Africa, so I have some background in this. A year ago, I came to the Young UNCTAD meeting on cybersecurity. I came by tram, and there was a group of people looking lost from Asia. I'm going, oh, nice people. So where are you going? Oh, we're going to the UNCTAD meeting on cybersecurity. We don't know how to get on the tram. I said, I'll help you to get on the tram. So we came here. And I said, I've been reading about you guys. It says in the notes you don't do e-commerce in Thailand. The guy said, don't believe what you read. They are the most connected country in the world. They have more business with more countries than any other country. But it doesn't show on our data. So I think proximity is very important to actually listen. Other comment, which I can say because I'm older than all of you guys, you're pretty old.
Yeah, very old.
Sitting there. There's nobody under the age of 23 on the panel.
Yeah, totally. Actually, the founder of Ethereum is a 19-year-old guy. Yeah, exactly.
I had a top entrepreneur from Singapore come and visit me recently. He's 20.
Yeah.
Developing this business. So I have a question for you. Two questions. The first one is, if I were a 20-year-old entrepreneur, female, because you go male. No, could be a girl. Sitting here today, what's she going to take away from what you've said so far?
Yeah.
My second question for you, I read this while I was waiting to get my chance. It says we're looking at the contribution of electronic trade, e-commerce platforms to the Sustainable Development Goals. Turn around the back, we have 3 SDGs there. If you'd like to tell me what you're going to do for these 3, it'd be kind of cool. That's what this meeting apparently is about.
Yeah, so in the first question, if I have this 20-year-old, which I have, by the way, I employ even younger than that.
It's good.
What I will tell them is that they badly need me or somebody with my age, because the world is a complex world. I mean, if you give the founder of Ethereum the possibility of ruling the world, you don't want to know what that world will be, right? So there's absolutely, and the only reason why you have 20 years old now emerging all over is because you, me, and the guys, we left for them an infrastructure that is so easy to use and so accessible. And that's why they are able to unleash their potential and imagination to build a better world. But the new generation needs to base themselves in international standards. If we do not create international standard and we watchdog those developments, we will enter into a world will be very dangerous. I am in the Committee on Artificial Intelligence with the World Economic Forum talking about how robots are going to be replacing us. Actually, in the last meeting we have a robot as a panelist. And this robot was actually very smart. So the question is not whether we need a 20-year-old person or not. The question is whether we, as humans, regardless of the age, we're going to be keeping the wisdom in order to use the bodies that are around this table with all the deficiencies, because nobody's perfect. But at least they are working towards creating a better world, which is inclusive. And we are developing countries. That's why I insist so much on developing countries, because this is essential. If we ever forget that we are working, all of us, for helping developing countries, then we should stop working where we are doing, because this is the fundamental spirit of the Millennium Goals, right? In terms of where we go, this roundtable is just a roundtable to expose the issues and to see whether some of the advices from the table and the audience can help to start to solve those issues. You have a question? No, sorry. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Thank you for your question. Yes, I will give you specific examples of how, for example, the postal network using ICT can help and can help us to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We have examples of how the postal network is providing financial assistance to remote areas in Paraguay. We have examples of how the postal network is providing e-marketplaces for small and medium enterprises in Africa. We have cases of how the postal network is using tablets and apps to check and to help the elderly people in Japan to make sure they are not alone, and if they need something, they can count on the post. We have examples of the postal network using technology in many places, just using the extensive network to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. The only thing we need is the commitment also for the governments to help us to invest, to use technology to make it even bigger and make us able to reach more and more people.
That's really good. Can I ask a quick question? How do you fund it?
This is funded by different means. One is the postal operator who is funded, and another way is partnerships. For example, in Japan, it's a partnership for IBM, Apple, and the Japan Post. In another country, in another places, is fundraising. Just a donor gives money to the postal operators or to the government to implement these services.
So a young entrepreneur who shares your ideas, you would be prepared to work with him or her? Yeah, if you have a young entrepreneur, this 20-year-old lady who comes to you and says, I love your goals, I want to work on these goals, will you work with this person?
Yeah, absolutely. I think none of us, we have here the complete solution to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. I think the partnerships are the key point to this. So as a postal operators or as a UN agency, we need to make sure we are inclusive and we get all the stakeholders working together. In many cases, we need this 20 years entrepreneur to help us as a UN organization representing the postal sector, but as all the organizations and governments to achieve those goals and also financing those goals.
So if we all give you one young entrepreneur by the end of this meeting, it'll be really cool, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I was very happy to see Carlos challenging the UN bodies around the tables here. I think we both know where he's coming from. About identities, there was a project for a blue tag for UNCTAD, ICC, or something to provide identities to millions or billions of people for, I think, farmers or others. Is this also going to be standardized, used, utilized, or is it another initiative that is completely independent from the other UN initiatives? If you know what blue tag or something is.
UNCTAD project on identity?
UNCTAD or the ICC, I think, the WT, the one on Montbriand, just down the road.
ITC.
Yeah.
Organization, maybe they're part of it.
It's an ITC project, yes. And well, what they do, ITC works with both private sector and public. So they try to support the private sector using the funds that they get from the public sector. That's what they do. They don't produce standard. They use the standard of others. In this case, they use our standard. And they try to support the private sector, mainly in developing countries, helping small farmers, and etc. This is the idea.
Yeah, indeed, I know, but I work on identity and providing identities and the blue tag, a UN tag, to millions and millions of people. So,
yeah, this part it could be absolutely. Those are the kind of synergies that we need to create. As an individual, I don't need an identity for an ICC, for an UNCTAD, for a World Trade Organization. Actually, I don't want any of those. What I want is I am the identity. The person is the identity, right? And the person delegates the attributes of that person towards the organization, and they have cross relations. So, in an ideal technology world, and that's the way I conceptualize the entire company in the process, is that a human person has a birth certificate. So when you learn, you have a birth certificate. That's your identity. It's not your nationality. It's not your credit account. It's not your citizenship. It's nothing. Those are attributes. Those are attributes on the top of an X509 algorithm that allows you to. But if you one day you anymore in the bank, your identity is still valid. If one day I change my nationality, my identity is still valid. If one day I stop trading, my identity is still valid. So an identity is a human right. Every single person should have a human right. So international organizations, we are what we call third trusted party in a PKI play. So each of them, they should define their role. There cannot be so many different roles and so many overlapping on roles. They will have to say WHO is the attribute for health-related identity activities. ITU is your mobile identity for mobile phones. UNCTAD is your trading identity, and we will share that with WTO and ITC, and so on. So those are attribute provision. And attributes are what you call third trusted parties. So that means I will use them if I trust them or not. This is the choice of the user. You cannot impose trust in anybody. So the good news is that with blockchain technology and decentralization, I don't have to have so many identities. Once you have established one identity, you put in a ledger, and anyone can see it. And if I change anything, it's actually available in that ledger. So this is where the world is going. Another thing which I didn't discuss yet, maybe you want to discuss that point, is IoT. IoT, WSIS is now producing chips that we put on mobile phones, on cars, on cameras. So it's 25 billion objects connecting to the internet. We already have 8 billion connected. It's going to be 1 trillion objects by the year 2050. So that will be the underlying infrastructure of smart cities, smart countries. And if you don't get that right, imagine the consequences. So, and by the way, we would like to, just before we wrap up, one discussion a bit about the dangers of identity, because we only talk about the good things. What about cybersecurity concerns about identity? And maybe Jill, and just introducing yourself, who you are, because you have a very interesting background, World Economic Forum, Geneva cybersecurity work. Maybe just please go give us some highlights on this.
Yes, and thank you very much. Yeah, indeed. Basically trying to bring back very pragmatic aspects into the global conversations, and I worked at the World Economic Forum before as well. I think we try to look at the issue, and SMEs as well. As you said, I think competitiveness is going to be key, and you can break it down as resources and intelligence. Intelligence being the capacity to adapt to new situations. And as you said, the fourth industrial revolution, we will see an increase in speed of change. And so you need agility at personal level. So when we talk about basically the identities being managed, you talk about the knowledge of the people as well. And in SMEs, I think your human capital will be key to be able to help you secure the jobs and the growth of your regions going forward. Cybersecurity is one side of it, because as we will take the central hub out, you basically have an explosion of innovation at the periphery in all your nodes. What you want to do is to basically be able to sense the weak signals, but you also want to be able to have trust in what you see. So at personal level, you want to try to help people make sense of what is going on, embrace the new concept of blockchain and of new technologies that are coming up, and try to integrate them in a very inclusive way, knowing that the speed will basically marginalize many of them. So when we look at cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and digital transformations, I think the last mile very much can be thought of, okay, we talk to the people who are both individuals and employees, and we try everywhere we can to distribute knowledge, to protect, because the theft of your identity will be something that is going to be very compromising for you as a person, but also for your company. So cybersecurity and trying to open up to new opportunities will be key.
And the good news, if you get this right, these sensors, these IoT chips, these identities are producing amazing quality data, which is big data that comes to governments, comes to trade points, comes to postal offices. And that data has huge value, because companies now, what they want is to know what is going to happen to them in the future. They know where the money is in our days is what you call predictability. You want to predict. General Electric wants to predict where, when, and how their engines are going to be falling down, and they need a repair. And they want all the workflow of those engines by providing digital identity to digitally sign their maintenance contract. So this is the world we are moving, a world where you're going to have people identities interacting with objects identities, and that's going to create endless amount of data. By the way, there's an AI company here. How can you help developing countries with that data? I challenge you. Sorry, I just put you on the spot. But how can you really help? Because this is a huge business model that nobody has exploited yet in this discussion. It's the data that is created and the value of that data. If you can put AI on the top of it.
Is it up?
It's how those AI algorithms, they are able to, because they are getting data from the ecosystem, being able to take decisions that humans are not able to do, and they are faster and more efficient than humans taking those decisions.
Yeah, sure. So we are more used to commercial application of the data.
That's what we want. We want your business model.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
what we want.
As Google does. I mean, collects a lot of data and tries to know who you are, and then develop services and use what they know about you to sell more and more and more. So they want to enter the insurance company because they know that you need to go to the hospital every two days to make tests. They don't know exactly what you have, but since they know where you're going, if you go on holiday, if you're stressed, if you whatever, they know a lot about you, and that's the danger about it. So as a government agency, you really need to rule this thing, and how you could use artificial intelligence. As a government, it's hard to tell because maybe you will be able to find that an identity has been stolen, for instance. That is something that can help the government and help people at the end. But the government is not here to collect data and know how people are living and doing things. So, it's really to protect the citizen.
Cybersecurity is clear, right? AI is actually one of the most efficient ways to protect critical
thing about it.
infrastructure in
We
a
can
country.
collect a lot of data, and by detecting patterns and so on, we're able then to protect the citizen. That could be a good thing.
So as we need to go, because I think we're still some time. So yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Carlos. From in the Universal Postal Union, we are tracking all the parcels that are moving across the world internationally. So everything, when you order something online, you can track it online. So this is all the information we have going through the postal network, not private networks. So we are starting now to analyze all this big data, huge data that we have. And we wrote a paper with the MIT explaining how these movements of parcels are related with social media, for example.
Yeah, sure.
So the interaction in Facebook and the flows of the parcels are very similar. Yep. And not only with social media, with many behaviors. For example, you can track in which neighborhoods they are richer, poorer, in terms of the participation of e-commerce. So it's very, very sensitive information. So we are starting now to analyze this also because of privacy, regulation, and everything. We don't have a business model. We don't want to use this, but it's just to show you the power of the big data, and especially in e-commerce, how the e-commerce flows are related with many other flows.
Actually, that's a very interesting point you just raised about again, the power of decentralization. If a post office can check a parcel because the parcel has a digital tag and an identity. Imagine if you, in plus of that, you have a cooperation with Bruno Trade Points, and you can also check then what is inside the parcel is authentic, it's not counterfeited. Therefore, you can only transport if it's. So you are slowly, without the need of anything, basically, you don't have to invest anything. You are able to create a huge efficiencies in the logistical process. So this is the thinking process here. You know, how, with what is already available, how you can add and create synergies and reduce inefficiencies. Yeah. So you want to say something, Jonah?
Thank you. Just thinking about the 19 years old and the 20 years old, from my side on the government, I think it will be a great heritage for them that they don't know what is a queue. So our challenge is to become a digital government and a smart government. We have enough data, so we know when people is born. We don't need the mothers going into school to a pre-listing of getting into school. We know when the child is born. We should be the ones as government being so proactive because we use data effectively. Oh, I know where you live. I know what is the closest school, so I know when your child needs to start going to school. So I think that is something that is very doable. I know it may seem very challenging for many government, but it's not. And I think open technology, with the help of policies that recognizes digital identity for all and to all, we really are going to democratize services and become a very smart government and very proactive in serving citizens' needs and not waiting for them to come and bring copy after copy after copy to opening up a business. So I think that's something that will be a really good gift for any 20-year-old or 19-year-old, that they can build a company, build new technology, and they still have to go and do some queue. It's unacceptable at this stage of the world.
Exactly. And that's actually a very interesting point of how you can, and this goes back again to the question of 20 years old. I mean, we say 20 years old. What about 2 years old or 1 year old? You know, I mean, how you can bring the future citizens of the world to embrace technology. I don't know if you had an experience. I have a granddaughter, and the other day I showed her a dog, my dog, which is about 200 meters away. And I said to her, "This is my dog," and she's only 2 years old, and she did like that, you know, because she wanted to zoom the dog. Because she does that in the iPad all the time. So this new, nobody on here does that, right? But that's the new sign for them to say, I want to see it more and more near. So that means that we are adding behavior, human behavior into applications. And this is what it's all about. And that helps the developing countries because the innovation is there, and in some cases much faster and more efficient than us. Yes, go ahead.
Just to add a quick point on artificial intelligence, I think that many times we look for successful stories of the introduction of new technologies, and it's very good. But I wonder if it wouldn't be interesting to stress test these new technologies and think about
especially AI.
Bad scenarios. With artificial intelligence, for instance, Alexa will probably be the controller of the home, and I wonder how this would work with Alexa controlling the replenishment of the fridge or things that are missing in the house, and how does it mean what does it mean for brick and mortar little stores that need not only today to be online, but also to understand these new chains of visibility? So I wonder if we should think on this perspective too.
You know, one advice on AI is very dangerous because AI is like a virus, then we don't know how it's going to morph and how it's going to change and mutate, and AI can mutate very fast because AI mutates on the information that collects. So that means actually it's a very good article in MIT this morning about the car, driving car, self-driving cars, AI algorithms, which are now driving the car in ways that do not have anymore nothing to do with human experiences. This is the car itself now reinventing different ways of driving itself. So that means that their own developers of that AI have lost control on what this AI algorithm is already doing. So that's why you need always to advance on the technology, but also make sure that you can standardize, that you can protect people, that you can protect humans, PII, and this is a role. This is a combined role. This technology is exciting, but it's at the same time quite dangerous. So, yeah, go ahead, please.
Just to add, to introduce myself, I'm Rohit. I work for a consumer organization which is also present in Geneva by the name CUTS International. Just to add to what Maria had said, we are talking about contribution of e-commerce to SDGs, achievement of SDGs, with the aspect of AI impacting competition nowadays, with either raising or holding the prices. So we at one place we are trying to provide consumers with the product, goods and services at much more affordable prices, while the prices in itself are not going down because they pick up the second or third player, they pick up prices from the first one. The prices are not at all going down.
Yes.
So in that sense, it is counterproductive. Don't you think so? And what can be the measures taken, can be taken up for such a case?
Does anyone want to take this question? Is it?
Yeah, for now, yes.
So sorry, because we couldn't hear very well here. So the question was how AI Can you just a bit louder, please, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that nowadays AI is being used to hold prices of a particular good or service.
Yeah, sure. Finding the best fly or finding the best.
Yes. So in that sense, competition is taking a hit, which has impact on consumers.
Yes.
So what is being done to curb such things when we want to?
But that's the thing. You know, AI is a $1 billion proposition. You cannot just create AI out of the blue. So AI algorithms are very expensive algorithms, and that's why you have the big guys. You know, Google, Facebook, buying companies. Alexa or Watson. Those are acquisitions they made. You know, and now because this company has so much data. You know, AI is like a small kid watching TV and learning, you know, one of those E.T. movies, then they learn very fast from the TV. But that's what an AI algorithm does. It learns from data. So if you have a lot of data, and this is the case, Google has the data of the world, AI of Google will be more efficient than AI of somebody that doesn't have data. So the food of AI is data. So in order to make AI algorithms very successful, you need to have a lot of data. That's why the free element of Facebook and everything is for free. This guy has been collecting data for decades now. So in the future, it's going to be very difficult not to work with them because they have the data and they have the AI. So the only way to avoid that to happen and create monopolies is by segregating data in areas. So I don't want Google who know who I am. I don't mind eventually if they know what I do. I maybe like play soccer or I play football or I play American baseball, but I don't want Google to know that this is me. So the me is encrypted, and this is why we need identities, and this is where international organization has to protect the individual on the PII, the personal identifiable information. Then, in the future, AI cannot data mine that part, and if they do, they will need a consent from the users. So the user will say, okay, I don't mind you data mine me, but what is my benefit as a user? Developing countries can say, okay, I don't mind you coming and look into my industry, but I want to share the revenue with you and the business model with you. So that's the way you protect yourself. But for a time, we are blind on that. We don't see that yet. You know, we are addicted to social data and social media, and we are feeding the monster, right? We are feeding the monster.
But
yeah, go ahead.
One additional point to basically you're talking about curbing the current trend. I think what you are putting to the people is a tremendous adaptive challenge because the distributed model means that everyone has to really reflect on this question as to I need to understand first what is going on, and then I need for myself and for my small group around me to make a decision on whether this is just or maybe whether this is against my values. And these questions before was resolved at nation level, at your country level. And this is a trust you have in your country for that government to basically bring regulation and to bring solutions to you. I think today, and in going forward, we will rather bet on technology and on encryption to give you additional tools to equip you to decide whether you want these big GAFAs and others to hold your data, or whether you want others, non-related networks, to do that.
So as we only have 5 minutes left, just to slowly wrap up the roundtable, just to inform you that the objective of this roundtable is actually creating the awareness, so we understand the problems where they are, to know where the set of expertise and the panelists here, but many others around the table can bring, and work in a collaborative environment. I mean, we are not doing this for any profit or anything. We just want to do it right. I mean, I think WSIS, I was in the first WSIS event in Tunisia when this was created, and the spirit there was that the internet should be universal, the World Wide Web should never be controlled, data should be decentralized, cryptographic root key will be at national level. So it's our obligation towards the World Summit of Information Society to create a better world. And we are the architect, and maybe we are the last generation that has a say into this. If we don't get it right, we will get wrong for always, because those machines are so powerful. So there's a moral obligation for all the experts to contribute. So we have created this collaborative model. This is private sector, is foundations, is international organizations, is the Trade Point, is WSIS, is many. Then they are coming. Is the Geneva government. Actually, Microsoft is launching what you know, the Geneva Declaration, which is going to be a cybersecurity declaration, which I don't think should be Microsoft doing it, but anyway, it's a good idea. And the idea is that really Geneva is a great place because you have all the trusted parties here. You have international organizations, you have specialized agencies, you have private sector. You have it's a rich city, so it's money available for funding projects. So the idea is to work in cooperation. Next year, coming with a more concrete ideas. Now we have a huge amount of information we have to digest. I know I took 3 points important. One is really the standardization model. You know, we have to work a bit more. UNCTRAL, World Trade Organization, UNCTAD, ITU, ITC, all the bodies. UNCFACT, and everything is set by the UN. and we need to work together in creating some clear, it's not, I mean, I don't think we need standards anymore. We need kind of clear manifesto on how to go. Where are the 5-6 points that everybody needs to do in order to make this happen. Then we need the technology companies to really integrate and offer that technology to the international bodies without then need to develop. And then we need, and I think this is key, a distribution method. We have to create relations between Trade Point, chambers of commerce, post offices, embassies, missions. Anyone that is located in a foreign country should be able to help and participate into this endeavor of creating a trusted ecosystem for trade efficiency and trade e-commerce platform. So that's the intention. So I am and the panel here available to work with you. And I know that there's some concrete action items already by the World Trade Point Federation launching a new generation of trade points, which are going to be offered as an extension of the 70 trade points they already have. There's a lot of, there's going to be an identity, a trade point identity, which is going to be issued by trade points, which is going to be a free identity. Anybody can download without any financial commitment. And we will start to see transactions. If next year we can back here and we say, hey, out of this we were able to generate $100 million of trade, then we had done, all of us, a great job. So without that, I would like to thank the panel for their excellent participation and interaction, and thank the audience for your support. And again, we are here to improve the state of the world and make it much better. Thank you very much.